In the small town of Ravenswood, there stood a house infamous for its dark history. It was known as the Travers Estate, a once grand mansion that now lay abandoned and decaying. Other than the victims' remains and evidence being removed, the place was left with all the furniture and pictures inside, as if time was frozen that day, now everything collecting dust and deteriorating. Legends whispered of the gruesome murder that took place within its walls 2 decades ago. 25 innocent residents were poisoned, their bodies mutilated and thrown in hole in the basement and entombed in cement. The caregivers, a deranged couple, had committed these heinous acts, their madness echoing through the ages. Enter Ethan and Grace, 2 renowned ghost hunters seeking the truth behind the horrifying tale. Armed with their equipment and unwavering determination, they stepped foot into the Travers Estate, prepared to confront the supernatural forces that lingered within. Their fearless reputation had garnered them fame, but this investigation would test and strain their beliefs. The 2 entered with eager anticipation as they crossed the threshold. The air inside was dense with malevolence, as if the walls themselves exhaled the anguish of the victims. Shadows danced in sinister rhythm, whispering secrets of pain and suffering. The ghost hunters pressed on, undeterred by the palpable dread. Their footsteps on the floors echoed like drumbeats through the long hallways, announcing their presence to the otherworldly inhabitants. All was quiet, but the unease and feeling that they were being watched from the shadows consumed them. As the midnight hour approached, the mansion began to awaken with a sinister energy. Whispers echoed through the mansion's corridors and from room to room, as if the paranormal presence was letting them know they had been there all along. Shadows danced in the corners of their vision, disappearing whenever they turned to face them. Cold drafts brushed against their skin, sending shivers down their spines. They remained focused and alert, continuing their investigation, their hearts pounding, fueled by the adrenaline of the unknown. As they descended into the basement, their flashlights casted long, trembling beams on the old, cracked plaster of the walls. The room was a sepulcher, a tomb encased in the unforgiving grip of cement. Ethan and Grace's hearts raced, unable to comprehend the magnitude of the atrocities committed here. Then they noticed the drop in temperature. Ethan and Grace could now see their breath. The air grew thick with an acrid stench, and a ghostly apparition materialized before them. Her old, tortured face, etched with sorrow and pain, reached out for Ethan and spoke, but no voice or words materialized. She then vanished into thin air. Before they could react, Ethan and Grace heard a deep, low growl coming from the corner of the basement, unable to see what was causing it. Grace raised her camera, hoping to capture the entity and documenting the truth. But as she pressed the shutter and the camera flashed, and an unseen force surged through the room, knocking her back with a violent force. Fear gripped Ethan's heart, but he refused to succumb to it. He then ran to Grace, picking her up. As he ran towards the steps leading upstairs with Grace in tow, they quickly walked past the hole in the middle of the basement, where the victims' bodies once laid. The Travers Estate then came alive as they made their way upstairs. Furniture levitated and crashed against the walls. Pictures tore themselves from their frames. Doors opened and slammed shut. Ethan and Grace used their expertise pitted against the supernatural. They brandished a blessed crucifix from the Vatican, recited incantations, and read verses from their Bibles and doused the halls and rooms in holy water. But the mansion had become more and more volatile. Every time they threw holy water on the floors, it bubbled and smoked, the house filled with moans and unearthly screams, while shadows danced on the walls and floor. But Ethan and Grace stood their ground, defiance burning in their eyes. Suddenly, a figure materialized before them. It formed a haunting, contorted, sinister, unearthly face. It hissed and growled like a wild animal. Grace once again held up her camera, this time capturing the demonic entity in its entirety. The mansion shook violently as the entity screamed, its otherworldly form unraveling. Desperate, it lunged at her, its long claws barely missing her throat. Ethan then took his crucifix and placed it on the head of the creature. The demon screamed in agony. Grace then took the holy water that was remaining in the small vial and dumped its remaining contents onto the creature. The mansion continued to shake to its foundation, and then there was a bright light. The mansion filled with light as it lit every dark nook and cranny, turning night into day. As quickly as it started, it had abruptly ended.